So Brian brought this to my attention, and I think the reason we felt the need to preface this, and I'm gonna let Brian sort of lead this one. The reason I think
this
we
is near and dear to my
the
heart.
reason we needed to speak on this is because what has happened here is a company we both used to do work for. Yes, with. Although I think when you finish this, you might realize how it didn't necessarily feel like a with. And it felt probably more like an at. After you say that, after you finish
that
this.
is well done.
But this has to do with SB Nation, and they've come up and they've had a lot of coverage about them. And I will preface this by saying, both of us worked with SB Nation through Nets Daily. We will also say we're going to get to this. Nets Daily, the people who work at Nets Daily, who gave us the opportunities. This is by no means any attack on them, because they're.
This is above them.
This is above them.
This is the business structure that has been going on there for a while that I had always worried about. Yes. And yeah. Well, by there I mean SB Nation.
Not Nets
not
Daily.
Nets Daily in particular. This is just how SB Nation.
Nets Daily is just a part of SB Nation,
Yes.
as their other fan blog sites that they have.
I think because we have a lot to get to, but I think you should read. I guess the part about California and how
You like when I read stuff.
because this is you have a great reader voice and I just have a lot to say. But basically, in short, what we'll say is that SB Nation basically slash their California part of their business, their SB Nation team sites.
Okay, you want me to
Without them knowing, I should also say, Golden State of Mind, and I'm forgetting the name, Sacktown Royalty. Like a lot of these bloggers got let go.
So I'm reading this from a friend of the podcast, former SB Nation collaborated with us and Nets Daily, Tom Lorenzo.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm going to read this part of it from because Tom wrote it in his article.
Yes.
But and we're going to mention Tom because Tom did the right thing.
By the way, I was glad he did that because you can't. This is the thing, and this is what we were just talking about: the lack of diversity in newsrooms, all the numbers that have been reported. You can't simply ignore these things. Because if you do, and people like Tom don't speak up, things are just going to continue as is. But credit to Tom and the other people at the other blogs who have recognized why this is problematic, how this could affect them and their writers, and why this business model just it's bullshit, for lack of a better term.
Actually, so let me go this because I brought up this something specifically on a California law that happened. Vox Media, who runs SB Nation.
Yes.
I will also add this. I've been in the Vox Media offices, and Vox Media offices, their numbers and the people look very similar to some of the numbers that we mentioned earlier, in some of the other newspapers. So what I'm saying is it's not that diverse. Take that for what you want. They're a large digital media company, array of sites, as we talked about, all these SB Nation sites. They abruptly terminated hundreds of freelance writers in the state of California. The company canceled its agreements with about 200 contractors to comply with a new law. Now, remember, those are freelancers, folks, that goes into effect January 1st, 2020. So, again, a lot of these folks got this news right in the holidays, right before Christmas.
On Twitter. Without email,
right,
nothing.
The law is known as California Assembly Bill 5, commonly referred to as AB 5. The law is enacted to prohibit corporations from misclassifying workers as independent contractors instead of employees. Something I didn't mention to you, Brian.
Yes.
And I'm going to take stop and say this, Bear. There has been a long history of companies taking advantage of people as being independent contractors and not employees, doing the work of employees. I'm not mentioning the company here, but I told you about a company I work for where that happened to, and basically when I ended up being let go and tried to file for unemployment, the New York State Labor Board, shout out to them because they did a great job. They were like, oh, no. He actually was working like an employee, not an independent contractor because of the amount of hours and work you had him doing this week, which they did do a questionnaire, and there was a little bit of a legal, I don't say battle there, but, they came at me to get funds, unemployment, which I'll say the number, what the number was. We were talking about $1,600, folks. And this is a Fortune 500 company, and they came at me for $1,600. Okay.
I mean, look,
because
that's not above a company like SB Nation either. Because look at what they're paying some of their bloggers.
So what I want to say to that is, you have to understand that these companies, what they want is they will be able to get over on these folks, and they wanted to continue to get over these folks. But however, in California, now this bill is trying to stop them from being able to get over. So the cuts targeted writers for the SB Nation blog, which obviously covers sports in California. Vox intends to replace the freelance writers with roughly 20 new part-time and full-time staffers. Again, let's go back to those numbers. There were 200 contractors for them who were going to be affected by this. Now, because Vox SB Nation realizes that they have to actually pay these people for the value of what they're worth, they're only going to hire 20.
And here's the thing. They ain't going to make shit. Those 20 people?
Probably not.
What are they going to get? What are they going to get on salary?
They would.
I know what some people were making in those offices full-time.
They would rather cut back on their on the amount of content they could put to only pay people a certain amount than to actually. They'd even go with half. It's 10%.
Yeah, 10%
of the people.
Because companies like SB Nation, like others, and this is just about every damn company now in media. They want to get as much as they can for as little as they can. Yep. That's basically it. They want, how much can we get this for? They want to hire young because young is not always expensive. You know, they want to cut these corners and not give out full-time jobs with medical benefits, but instead have permalancers and freelancers and independent contractors and just ways to game the system without taking care of the employer, because they don't care about the person. They care about the role. They care about the work that is being done, not by whom. That's basically it.
What I was just reading for, I want to give credit where credit is due. I was reading from a Forbes article on this, which is very well written, and this was by Jack Kelly, who covers career stuff for Forbes. Jack Kelly said this. I want to read this paragraph because I think this is important. Ironically, Vox was a big proponent of AB5 and viewed the new law as a victory for workers. This is the unintended consequence of ideas that seem good at first, but have ramifications that hurt people it intends to help. Vox contractors will lose out on the earnings derived from writing pieces for the company. For many, we're talking about, it is the sole or a large part of their income. It may be difficult, if not impossible, for the downsized contractors to obtain similar journalist roles, as we know, because it's very limited positions, due to the new law. Vox will now need to hire people on a part-time and full-time basis and pay them expensive benefits. They will lose out on the 200 independent writers who offer knowledge, viewpoints, and analysis that will be hard to match with 90% less people. As I said before, it's only 10% of the people they're bringing back. In a blog post entitled, "California's Terrible AB5 Came for Me Today, and I'm Devastated," Rebecca Lawson, the editor-in-chief of Mavs Moneyball, lamented, and she said, quote, "As with many of my colleagues today, because I live in California, I was just told that I can no longer hold a paid position with SB Nation. This means I'll be forced to step down as editor-in-chief of Mavs Moneyball on March 31st. I feel for that woman. She was able to do a job remotely and edit a site and work because she lives in California. She now is not able to earn her income in that way. There's so many limited jobs, Brian, as you know.
I'm trying to get some.
And what I think you were trying to hit upon is that because of the limitation of those jobs, these companies have kind of preyed upon that for people to get said opportunities.
There's a reason why most of the bloggers at SB Nation are around my age or younger.
Yep.
Because in a lot of places in general, like, you know, how many times you look up and you see like unpaid interns at big companies, and everyone's just trying to get as much as they can for as little as they can. In a place like SB Nation, I have reservations about this from the jump. I understood the angle of exposure. I understood the lack of money. In fact, I didn't even make any money the first year that I was there covering the Nets. And then the second year, beginning of the second year, all right, so let me get into this from a personal standpoint a little bit. 2016, I started writing there at Nets Daily, right? That first year where I was going to a lot of practices and I went to some games, but mostly practices, and I was covering the team basically as a beat reporter because I was there a lot. I was there basically all the time, around my St. Francis schedule, around my schedule doing a bunch of other stuff, writing, freelancing at the newspaper. So just balancing all that stuff, not getting paid anything for that entire first season. I didn't get anything until September of 2017. So we're talking about 16 months approximately after I first wrote a story there at Nets Daily, right? So it took almost a year and a half to see a few $100s that first time, a stipend. And when I got that stipend, this is when SB Nation implemented a quota in their contracts. Mind you, let me tell you what my contract entailed, right? My contract entailed for the 17-18 season, it was a quota for 30 stories a month, Let's start there. 30 stories a month.
Folks, that is a story a day in most months.
30 stories a month. And on top of that, we had the quota, and we had I think somebody above me who you can figure out 50 stories a month for a little more money, obviously. And at this time, I'm still at St. Francis. I'm still balancing this and all that stuff, right? There's another part of this that's escaping my brain, but we'll get around to that later. So that was the whole season. And on the contract, there was a non-compete. There was a non-compete with Bleacher Report, with, I want to say ESPN, and there may have been another place there, but Bleacher Report was 1,000% on there, right? There was a non-compete. And then after that, when Deadspin found out about this and blew them up about it, the next year I noticed that the contract didn't have a non-compete, didn't have a quota, nothing. So I was like, okay, because it's hard to make that quota when you actually give a shit about what you're writing about. Right? I'm not just...
Right, because anybody could put out some bullshit.
Yes, I'm not just... there was a word minimum, 250 words or something like that. I don't know, 150, whatever it was. But I write features, bro. Like, I don't just go out here and just aggregate stuff that is going on. But I had to do a little bit of that just to make the quota and to keep the few hundred a month that I was getting at that point. But that all got dropped until the following season. And you know me, before that third season, what did I say? I'm like, look, if the pay doesn't go up for the following year, I'm not doing this because, one, I'm not even a net fan. I'm doing this to obviously build my resume, make some contacts, do good work. Obviously like being around the Nets, covering the team. They're a fun team to cover. The people that cover the Nets are cool for the most part. But all that was going on. And then 2018-19, that was when the quota dropped. And that was when I was able to basically, just have a little bit more of a relaxed situation covering the team, though I was still there all the time. And let me tell you, the pay never changed the entire time there. So then I told Tom, we talked about it over the summer. I was like, look, if the pay doesn't go up, honestly, and he knows I told him this, I'm not going to be back next year because I just hate their business model. Their business model is rapey. Their business model doesn't make sense for me at 25, damn near 26. I'm going to be 26 in a few weeks. And, when I joined, I was 22. You're out of college. You're trying to get in. And this is the thing that I'm trying to tell people is that we have to get away from that style of thinking. If I could redo it again, I don't know that I would have made the same decision because what happens is people get sucked into thinking they need exposure, they need an opportunity, when if you say no to these terrible working wages over the amount of time, over a certain amount of time, if a lot of people do it, a lot of people just reject that, then these companies are going to have to adjust to us because we can control the narrative.
I agree.
A lot of people don't understand that.
I agree with you. I've never had a problem with necessarily either paying your dues or getting exposure. What I have a problem with is the business model. Brian, through all the stuff that Brian said, which I'm glad he got a story out there, all the stuff that Brian said through this point, Brian has spoken to me. Brian asked me, what do you think I should do? You think I should do this? The thing I always came back to Brian was you got to know your value. And if you don't think something's worth it for you, as I said to him, you got to know when to leave.
I've left 2 jobs in the last 15 months because of that.
The quota also,
and both of them on good terms, by the way.
Right.
Both of them on good terms,
You can leave stuff when you know your worth and be in good terms.
Yeah.
The quota also impacted me even as video. At some point they came to me and said you have to do this many videos a month. It didn't work with what else I had to do with my schedule, and so I stopped doing it. Again, I'll be clear about this. It has nothing to do with the lovely people that we worked with at Nets Daily. They were more than great for me. They're the ones I really always look at as giving me the opportunity to do what I did there. So, shout out to Tom Lorenzo and Bob Windrum. And Pooch, they're the people that gave me the opportunity. They're not the ones that was cutting the check for me. So there's nothing there. But I think they would understand, and Tom clearly does, we'll get to him in a second, that the business model sucks. The business model preys on one thing, though. Everybody is not thinking the way that you are. The problem with the way things work in just capitalism is that, and just in our American society of work, people always going to go in the fact that if you don't want to do it, you don't want to come here and get this limited amount of funds, somebody else will be desperate enough to do it.
And that's the problem.
And the thing in this social media age, even more so, it increases the level of that because people know they can get some sort of visibility, and you can. Brian, I don't think is going to be disingenuous and say that Nets Daily did not do anything for him and covering the Nets in his career. It did. It did give him a certain level of visibility and people seeing him following the team and people doing that. even though he's much more than that. But
so did MSG and Backpack Broadcasting and the newspaper.
Yeah, but there are ways for
side hustle. And you know what I'm saying?
There are ways for people to do these things as companies and value the people at the same time and not take advantage of them. So let's call it out for what it is. SB Nation, Vox Media, and the stuff they did are absolutely taking advantage of people. They're trying to. They're not different than most other companies.
I was going to say they're not the only ones, by the way.
I understand. And there are going to be people going to push back on this. I understand business. I understand that business is about trying to get the most you can out of workers for the least that you can pay them, right? Until you feel like you have to show them to the value. At least in this capitalistic society we've been in, it doesn't mean that you have to take so much of an advantage. I think there's a point where people understand that. I work for somebody. They still trying to turn a profit. It's not just all paying me. They're only going to pay me what they value me. But when it's clear that in these situations where you're getting so much content, it's so much work, and you're not willing to pay people standard living wages. You're not willing to give them benefits and things like that. You want to skate around that just because you think they're so desperate for the opportunities. That's part of the other point I was making in the last segment we talked about, which was maybe it's time for us to wake up and band together just as a people and create your own stuff where you can do stuff for yourself instead of being so dependent on these folks. If they feel they have the upper hand, this is what they're going to do. I'm glad people have called him out. Thanks to Deadspin.
Yeah.
Because Deadspin's huge in it, getting to the point that it is today.
Yeah.
Tom Lorenzo, our guy, did a good job because, I was wondering, are these other blogs that may be not affected by this, are they going to stay silent? Tom Lorenzo, editor at Nets Daily, decided not to. And he said, he wrote this in this article. After the pass, as some of you may have already heard, after the passing of a new California law that was intended to protect and contract and freelance workers, SB Nation, his parent company Vox Media, cut about 200 contract positions, including many of those who cover the NBA. So more specifically, those living in California. Part-time for our brother and sister sites here at SB Nation NBA. Simply put, it was handled very poorly by SB Nation management. Letting people know minutes before an announcement by the company via Twitter was made public that they were let go, and in some cases, people had learned about their being let go by a simple, poorly timed tweet. The Nets Daily team stands in support of the super hardworking and extremely underpaid individuals who ran their communities in the same way that we do here. We, with love for the team, its fans, and the community, if no other reason than that, so beyond money, beyond access, a lot of people lost in a second the ability to maintain a position within a community they had spent a decade or more building in some cases. Others lost an outlet that kept them occupied after a long day of work. Agreed. He said the Nets Daily would continue to post and cover the team. Tom was also gracious enough to thank all the people who have worked for the team over the years, including me and Brian, who we no longer contribute, but talked about the hard work that we did. And I want to say to Tom and the rest of the Nets Daily staff, we appreciate you
for sure
for not only the opportunity but also recognizing that and post to work. We made the choices that we made to move on because it was no longer worth it for us at the time. Again, it had nothing to do with the people. But it was more about the structure of the SB Nation Vox Media and just how it didn't work for us. I also want to be clear about something that Brian said. I understand how this works for people at a certain time in their life.
Yeah.
I think for young kids coming out of college, doing stuff for less pay, and I always say this to young people, that's fine. It's fine paying your dues in some way. I get all that.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I have a problem when you start taking advantage of folks. You can't ask some 25-year-old who's trying to start making their way in this world and have a living and have some health insurance and try to do simple stuff like get an apartment, especially living in places like New York City, and ask them to do this 30 articles a month for ridiculously low pay.
Yeah.
Nah, man, you'll get all the way out of here with that.
Yeah.
That's not cool. But it does matter to something Brian's saying. It matters when people speak out. It matters when people like Tom say this, who even work for the company, to say that's powerful. It's powerful when people say that. That's why I retweeted it. Brian did. We salute you, Tom. We salute the rest of the SB Nation bloggers who are speaking out against it and saying that what Vox Media did was not right. This was supposed to be good to protect the workers, but it ended up hurting them.
And the most important thing is don't be afraid to say no.
Yep.
That's the most important thing that I could say for anybody in these situations is just do not be afraid to say no. That say yes to everything thing that you're taught in college is bullshit. Is absolute fucking bullshit. I can't even tell you how bullshit that is. You just can't you can't say yes to everything because then you're hurting your value at the end of the day.
At some point,
there are
you gotta know
certain
what you're
things.
worth.
Yes, there are certain things that are just going to hurt your value, and that being chief among them is just don't say yes to everything. Know what you're willing to put up with. Say no. Say no. Just say no sometimes, and then you'll get further. Trust me.
I want to end this segment by saying, what Tom wrote in his last graph, I thought was really good. He said, "We call on SB Nation to an open and honest dialogue with us and our communities about these changes, and give us a greater voice in any future decisions affecting the heart of our work and communities. We deserve at least that, and frankly, we deserve a lot more."
I would endorse more of the SB Nation blocks breaking away and going independently, but I understand how much harder that could make it for certain things because you would have to do so much more just keeping the website afloat and things of that nature. And it is putting some money in some people's pockets. But look, I think at the end of the day, controlling what you can control as much as you can, it just works out better.
I wouldn't be shocked if we see some people go that way or some people try to make independent contributing sites to that. But I hope that they can listen to what Tom said and they can have an honest dialogue and give the people a greater voice in that. Because what I think happens, and I think what the shift is coming, is you got to have stronger workspaces where there is open dialogue. Because when you have workspaces where there isn't open and honest dialogue, it doesn't create for good work environments. And one thing I am hopeful for the future, people ain't here for that. No more. People ain't here for that anymore. And I think this is what you're seeing here. And, I think if people can, this is not rise up and fight the system, but what we're asking for is to have open
you can do that.
dialogue.
You can do that.
But what I'm saying is it don't even have to be all that. It could be just, have some honest conversations and be mature as business owners, open enough to do that. If you can do that, then I think it can actually be okay.
I posted on my Instagram this morning when I woke up because I was thinking about this, and I posted it on my story. I said, if we accept standard practices, things will never change. Speaking out and acting accordingly is important. I hated the structure, as I talked about. I hated the structure up top and left, and I'm doing just fine. The industry doesn't change unless we do. That's the most important thing, because we can change that.